thank you all, new friends, old friends, customers for joining us on this call. Couple of little housekeeping items before we begin. You guys are all, the presenters are all live. You guys are all muted, but we will be taking questions via the webinar portal that you can put questions in that we'll be answering at the end. In addition, there'll be some polling questions throughout the presentation. But this is going to be recorded, so if you guys would like to check it out later on our website, you could definitely do that under our Knowledge Center. Before we begin, we really just wanted to give you an idea of who Symmetry is and what we do, and then we'll dive into the education of HANA and how it could provide real business value to you folks, and give you an education on those of you who aren't familiar with HANA, as well as some new information for those that are. Real quickly, our story: Symmetry has been in business for over 17 years. We are focused on SAP technical services. So we're not the traditional SI that does implementations, etc. We do technical services remotely from our multiple offices and data centers in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're 100% SAP focused, and we focus on the basis, the security, implementations, upgrades, and migrations from the technical side, as well as cloud hosting and disaster recovery, and obviously HANA and mobility. This is just a look at our Symmetry value stack, really a combination of our thought leadership through execution, but really how our solutions are streamlining our customers' operations, as well as really providing a compelling ROI. Wrong way. Yeah. Okay. There we go. One more. Presenting today, we're fortunate to have our COO, Mr. Frank Powell. He's been with Symmetry for over 15 years. He's come up through the ranks as basis all the way to CEO, and we're fortunate to have him, as well as Nick Militich, our Director of Solution Architecture, who really runs our pre-sales activities, as well as managing project plans for over 25 world-class customers. So they'll be handling the duties today, so we look forward to that. And real quickly, the agenda, this is what we're going to kick off right now, is really HANA in its simplest terms, how it can really drive business value for you, and in addition, why we really want to think about being early adopters, how it's different, why you should be interested, and exploring HANA technology. And finally, at the end, we will be taking some time for the question and answer session. Again, there is a tab on your WebEx that you can submit questions throughout the presentation. We'll handle them at the end, but we will be doing some polling questions during the presentation itself. And with that said, I'll hand it over to Mr. Frank Powell for the presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Todd, and welcome to everyone who's attending this morning. First of all, I just want to talk a little bit about what is HANA. And I mean, many of you may have heard some tidbits about what HANA is. If anybody was at Sapphire a few weeks ago, certainly you were definitely hand-fed plenty of information on HANA, I'm sure. But for those of you who haven't, basically, HANA is an in-memory database. And one of the things that's unique is if you think about what traditional database technology was, it was a place to store data, right? And it was literally, and the way SAP typically uses it is they stored data, their applications, and they used the database in a very generic fashion. So the unique thing with HANA is not only is it a database storage location, but now they're actually putting more application functionality and more of the processing engine within the database itself. So instead of this traditional relational database, it is in memory in a columnar format, which is a little bit unique. But what happened is a couple of years ago when HANA was first introduced, it was purely more of an analytical engine. But back then, Hasso Plattner did make the statement that his goal was to turn this HANA platform into their database environment across their whole product spectrum, including their transactional systems. And I think a lot of people in the industry, and certainly the competitors, said, well, not realistic, it'll never be done. Well, guess what? This January, when they finally announced Business Suite on HANA, he realized that that vision of actually being able to use an in-memory database across the spectrum of their products did come true. So again, in simple terms, if you want to think of what HANA is, and again, today we are really focusing on Business Suite on HANA, meaning we're going to take your ERP system and put it on the HANA platform. I'm going to mention a little bit about the different types of HANA applications that exist, but a lot of what we're going to talk about today really focuses on Business Suite on HANA. So in simple terms in that regard, think of HANA as merely replacing your current relational database. So if you're using Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, what have you, we're going to replace that database with DB2 instead of the traditional database technology we're using. As I mentioned a minute ago, it is an in-memory database, so it is much, much faster, and there's all sorts of different statistics out there, and depending upon what the application was, how much data was being processed, it can literally be tens, hundreds, or even thousands of times faster than those legacy databases. And also, you know, HANA does now have these embedded additional features that will help improve business processing. So the additional of the analytic engine, for example, as opposed to having to move your data outside of ERP to a BW environment or to another third system, some of that processing can now just be handled directly within the HANA engine. So what that means is, you know, traditional database vendors had all these features that were good for developers to enhance more applications. With the HANA environment, we actually have business engines that actually not only help developers, but are really designed to help speed the processing for the business needs as well. So when you think about, you know, where you want to spend your next dollar as far as IT budgets and where you think you're going to get the best ROI, if you think of that traditional legacy database as really just a transactional engine or just a data store, you need to start thinking of HANA in a different way. And we're going to show you some examples of some of these new applications and how they're impacted by having an application or having a database like HANA underneath it. But when you have the choice of spending money on a traditional database that really is just a transactional engine versus a platform like HANA that has not only the transactional engine, but a dimensional engine, an analytic engine, a predictive engine, as well as a text engine, you start to see that you get a far more broad range of application supporting engines, as SAP calls them, that can actually be far more productive for your data processing in your environment instead of a traditional legacy database. So, as I mentioned before, we're really kind of focused on Business Suite today. But one of the things I think a lot of customers are a little bit confused about is they hear HANA, but what does that mean? What are the different applications that HANA is supported by SAP? Well, so this is just kind of to help clarify that. So today, Business Suite is what we're focused on. And Business Suite is kind of a marketing term from SAP. And what that means is Business Suite is the group of products that include ECC, CRM, SRM, PLM, and SEM. So if you went to SAP and said, hey, I want to buy Business Suite, you'd get those 5 products. Now, PLM and SEM, the reason I had those grayed out is because they're officially not supported on HANA yet, but they will be later this year. But ECC, CRM, and SRM are, as of today, fully supported. And at Sapphire, they went from being in ramp-up to GA with generally available, or general availability. So they are fully supported today. Now, the other applications you can use for HANA are Business Warehouse or BI or Data Warehouse, whichever way you want to refer to it. So Data Warehouse on HANA is a separate product, and that is what the first release of the HANA application was a few years ago. So we have a few customers who are using BI on HANA today, and that has been out for a couple of years. The third one on the list are HANA sidecar applications. Now those are very specific ERP, CRM, or other applications that are for one very specific purpose. And I'll give you an example. They have a sidecar application for COPA. So for costing and profitability analysis, if you have problems or performance issues running your COPA reports, you can buy a sidecar application just for COPA. And in that example, you would still have your traditional ECC environment unchanged. You would stand up a small HANA database right next to your existing ERP system that would run this COPA application. And what the system would do, it would load the COPA data, keeping it in sync through RFCs, into the HANA database, so it's in memory. You would run your COPA reporting in the HANA appliance, and then it would push the results back to your ERP system. So those are sidecar applications, and there's a couple of dozen of those. And then lastly, you can just buy HANA as a development platform. And if any of you are familiar with like Amazon Web Services and their HANA environment that they have out there, that's really what that is meant for. So if I just want to stand up a simple little HANA database and I want to write third-party applications to run in a really fast in-memory database, you can do that as well. So those are really kind of the four main flavors. I fully expect to see, more HANA applications being developed by SAP as well as third-party providers. But really, in a nutshell, those are the four main different applications that you would buy HANA for. So that's, in simple terms, that's what HANA is. Now let's take a look at, what is the compelling reasons of why you, as an SAP customer, would be interested in purchasing Suite on HANA. So first of all, like I said, if any of you have attended Sapphire this year, I think it's painfully clear that all roads, for SAP at least, are going to lead to HANA, right? So BW has been out there, Business Objects, Suite on HANA, CRM, all these other things, and I think it was clear, it's been clear for the last several months, obviously, but certainly at Sapphire that HANA is the platform of the future for SAP. So why is Business Suite on HANA such a compelling argument? Well, if you think of the places that we get data from today, and the volume of that data, it's increasing every week. And for those of you with organizations that have social media, do collaborative business, looking to do advanced analysis if you're not already, have digital connections all over the globe, many of our customers are now doing more with mobile, whether it be for their customers, for their workforce, someplace in the warehouse, as well as your traditional business transactions. I think what we're seeing is the volume of this data is growing every day. And what that has presented as a challenge for all ERP vendors, and specifically with SAP, but what SAP had the vision to see is this volume of data was starting to create a bottleneck. It was just getting to the point where you could only process so much data so fast, and keeping to push data into all disparate systems and parsing it out in more granular ways wasn't really the best way to proceed. So the business requirements are changing from what they were 10 years ago. So what Business Suite now does is takes a look at all these external sources of data, whether it be the user-driven experience or the ERP requirements that your internal employees are using, and now creates a platform that can process all of that data, not only the volume in a much faster processing way, but it can also do it in real time. So depending on what type of reports or what type of analysis you're looking for, instead of having to gather data in your ERP system all day, transforming it or transporting it over to a BW system at night, then running your analytics on data that's maybe 24 or 48 hours old, some of that analysis can be done real time as the data hits your system. So what we're talking about now is really a real-time processing of all data that's being entered into your corporation. So many people would say, well, we've heard all this HANA talk and it's faster, 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 and that's great. And I think, a lot of people would say, well, geez, if my existing applications unchanged, but if they could run significantly faster, maybe that would be enough. If I could take my MRP and it could run in a few minutes instead of a few hours, that'd be fantastic. If I could completely eliminate my batch schedule, because now these jobs that I had to sequence and they all took, tens of minutes or an hour or 2 hours, and my batch cycle ran, for 4 hours at night, but because of the speed of the platform, I didn't even need a batch cycle because these jobs could run in real time, that'd be fantastic as well. And every other transaction, I think every one of you probably have transactions, well, it takes 20 seconds to run this report, and, that's not bad. But what if that 20-second report could run in sub-second response time, right? So that would be all important. But if you think about the resources that you use in the computing system itself, all those long-running jobs just add to the competition for CPU, memory, and disk, right? So by merely making those jobs run faster, the competition for resources also gets reduced. So like I said, if I could just say those top 4 bullets is what HANA is going to bring to your environment, a lot of you might say, boy, that's enough, sign me up. But there's another business proposition here, right? What if, in addition to that, because of the speed, I can now take some of the operational analytics and reporting that I'm moving to other systems or are really slow running, and I can actually build that analytical engine right into the transactional system as well. And that is really where the true value of Suite on HANA comes in. So what you're seeing right now is a list of 24 key business processes. I will tell you that at Sapphire, SAP announced 2 more, so I don't have the updated slide. But these are 24 additional business processes that, as you implement Business Suite on HANA, are added to your ERP system. Okay? So as you can see, they're kind of across different functional areas. So they apply to finance, marketing, supply chain, manufacturing, and others. So this is really where the value of Suite on HANA comes in. As I said before, all your other applications are going to run a lot faster, but these are brand new applications that will be added as part of the migration to HANA. So what I would like to do is just take you through one of these scenarios just to kind of give you a glimpse of the power of these applications. So the one I'm going to show you today is real-time material planning. Okay? So the idea here is to reduce out-of-stock issues, decrease inventory and safety stocks, limit the bullwhip effect of inventories going up and down and trying to do this manual process of analysis that a lot of our material handlers are doing today or our production planners are doing today. So that's what the material planning scenario is going to talk about. So what I want to do is just walk through, and these are not screenshots, but this is an online demo of this application. Okay, so this is kind of a canned demo, so it's not live data, but it is the actual screens that you would see in one of these transactions that would come in. This is called the MRP cockpit. And in this example, what you're seeing is we have uncovered items or uncovered orders, meaning I don't have enough material to produce certain orders that I have that are outstanding. So what I'm going to do here is just take this filter, and down here in the lower left, this is right now showing me orders within 14 days. So I'm going to say, let's change this to 7 days. So if I change my filter back to 7 days, it shows me this uncovered order for Smith Incorporated. Okay, they're a Category A customer, and the value of this order is $156,000. So what I'm trying to figure out is how do I get the material necessary to produce the products for this order. So if I come to the next screen, it's going to show me what are my choices and how can I find material to fulfill this order. So here's my choices. So my first choice here is, can I reassign from another order, meaning I'm kind of stealing from Peter to pay Paul. So if I drill into this, the only thing I see, and I should have pointed it out the first screen, but the order that is unfulfilled is due on the 17th of January. Okay? So if I look at the other orders that I could take product from, they're all due on the 17th or earlier as well. So if I fulfilled the order I'm looking at for Smith Incorporated with this material, I'd make one of these orders be late. So that's not a good option for me. If I go into the option of purchasing the product through a purchase order process, I can look at my different vendors and I can see, well, no one can deliver that product in time. So this one vendor could deliver it by the 19th, the other could deliver it by the 24th, but again, I need the product by the 17th. So that's not a good option for me either. So my third option here is, what if I can transfer it from another plant? Well, I can see here, if I transfer it from the Los Angeles plant, they could get it to me by the 16th. So right here on this screen, I can click transfer, and immediately behind the scenes, the transfer order is created. The system starts to process the necessary paperwork and the printed transfer sheets, and all of a sudden now, this order now is saying supplied on time. So if I can just move this, I just need to get back here so I can click off this. So if I go back to my main order screen, now you'll see that Smith is no longer in my list because that order is going to be fulfilled from the transfer order that was created from the Los Angeles plant. Okay? So again, real-time analysis for MRP, that in today's MRP transactions would mean the production planner would have to look through those inventories manually, decide which is the best option, maybe not have good visibility to his options, maybe not have good reporting. So again, in one screen, you can make all of these things happen and have the analytics to make the best decisions. So real quick, that was just a quick snapshot of how the MRP cockpit would work. But every one of these transactions has a similar scenario behind it. The sheet you're looking at, if any of you are interested, we would be happy to send it to you. This is actually a live PDF, if you want to call it that. You can drill into every one of these. It shows you the scenario, it does the walkthrough, and most of them have little quick videos. So if you're interested in that, please follow up with Todd at the end, and we can actually get this material to you. So you can say, well, Frank, that sounds all interesting, and that I can see where the analytics makes my life easier. But what is the real meaning behind that? Where would the ROI come from? Well, this is an example that SAP had put together from an analysis they did for a business out of Europe. And what this is it's not year by year, but this is over a 3-year period. The analysis that was done over the investment it was going to take to get them to HANA. So you can see here they had some migration costs up front, right? So they have €1 million. There was some IT investment that had to be done, right? So as most of you are aware, HANA is a unique appliance, so there were some hardware purchases that had to be had. But then this was the analysis of what was the business value that they saw in savings, right? So the reduction in lost discounts, the receivables management, scrap reduction, project budget optimized routing, instant availability and pricing. This was the savings that they saw over the 3 years. So for SAP, this becomes a very compelling argument. If this real-time processing can really start to reduce inventory, give you better management of your finances through better receivables and payables management, and you can truly start to see 10 times return on your investment, it makes the decision to move to HANA a very simple one. A lot of people talked about Sybase last year, or people talk about moving from Oracle to SQL Server, and they have all these technical reasons why that move from one technology might make sense in another. And what we're finding is some of those decisions, they're compelling to the IT department or maybe the CTO because they're technology driven. I think what you're going to find is the move to HANA is not necessarily going to be a technology decision, it's going to be a business decision. HANA actually can bring true business value to the organization. So yes, the IT department would be excited about this kind of a process as well, but I think people like the CFO, your CEO, your production planners, your people who manage your materials in your warehouses can look at these examples and say, hey, we can truly drive savings here with a really fast ROI as well as increased profits. So one of the questions might also be that you could have is, well, how do I know if these transactions really apply to my company in the way we use SAP? Because you said there's only 24 or 26 of those applications. So SAP, on one of their websites, does have a scenario builder where you upload your transactional history, you put it in there, and it's a pretty simple analysis, but what it does is it goes through and says, based on the transactions you currently use today, how many of these HANA-specific applications apply to your environment. So I'm just showing you right here as a sample output of that analysis. This is the finance module, and you can see, the one that says accounting and financial close. That one in particular, they're saying most of their customers today take anywhere between 7 and 10 days to close their financial periods. With the HANA plugin for financial close, they're saying you can close your books in 1 day. The long-running reports, the analysis that has to go into the business close no longer would exist with this additional application. So in this example, they're saying the fast financial close, 100% applies to this company. Now the other specific applications are 40%, 30%, 20%. So this analysis will help you determine what is the impact in your organization. And again, the scenarios exist for every one of those 26 applications that now exist. This screen is just a little bit deeper dive in the analysis. So for the fast financial close, you can get a little bit more information about what specific transactions in your environment are impacted by this HANA application. So there is a little bit more detail that goes through each one of those as well. So one of the next questions a lot of our customers ask, what is the impact of moving to Suite on HANA to my current landscape? Well, it does require some new hardware. So there are very specific HANA appliances that most major hardware vendors provide. Nick is going to touch on that a little bit in the future. But you can leverage some of your current landscape. So to not get too technical, but your central instances, they still need to run on something, whether it be Windows, HPUX, Linux, what have you. So some of the existing infrastructure can be leveraged. It's not like you're just throwing everything away. Your current application transactions do remain unchanged. So if you were to do nothing but migrate from Oracle to HANA in your ERP environment, other than the transactions running a lot faster, your users shouldn't see any difference. So VAO2 or whatever other transactions you may run, they do not change. What does change is now you have the option to turn on these 26 new applications, right? So to take advantage of those, there's minor configuration and setup to be done with those, but they are turned on in the environment, but they are available right after the migration. And the other thing that it could impact is it has the potential to reduce the need or reduce some of the data that you're transferring over to your BW environment. So if you're doing operational reporting, and that's the only thing, you're just moving data to BW for your operational reports, you could potentially reduce that need for BW. So let's talk about BW a little bit more, because I think that is a question that people may have specifically about. So how much would it reduce my need for BW? And the typical consulting answer is it depends. So what Suite on HANA does do, as I mentioned, it does provide real-time analytical capabilities right in your operational system. So right within CRM, right within ECC or SRM, you can run analytical reports. You know, one of the reasons people went to BW in the first place was to just offload the processing power out of their OLTP system so they weren't burdening the online application users with these long-running reports. Well, the speed of HANA takes that off the table right away. Okay? The second thing is there is now an analytical development engine within HANA, the HANA platform called SHAF. Okay? So you can actually develop analytical processes and analytical reports directly within the HANA application, the HANA database system itself. So the ability to do those reporting functions within your ERP system are there today. The thing that HANA is not, that a lot of customers use BW for, is HANA, you would not use it as a consolidation system. So if I moved my ECC system to Suite on HANA, I'm not going to start pulling data from all my other sources and put it into ERP. That would not make sense. Okay? So if you're pulling data from multiple sources, third-party products, third-party vendors, wherever the data comes, and you're using BW as a consolidation system for reporting, you would not use Suite on HANA for that. The other thing is, Suite on HANA is not going to keep statistical history of data. So a lot of people roll data up, they store it over in BW, and they do rolled up reporting, and they keep this historical analysis. Remember, your OLTP system is just keeping the real-time data. So you want to keep that, I guess, pristine, and you wouldn't be keeping that statistical data there. Okay? So, next question. How is Business Suite licensed? Well, it's a pretty simple license model, right? So your SAP licenses remain unchanged. This isn't a repurchase of SAP or ECC or anything like that. It strictly is the database license that needs to be replaced for your in lieu of your legacy database system, right? So if you bought Oracle or you bought SQL Server, all we're doing is replacing the database license. And the HANA price for Suite on HANA is 15% of your SAP applications fee. SAP calls it that software maintenance value base. So whatever your support contracts are based off of is 15% of that software purchase price, okay? Which, not incidentally, is the same price as Oracle today, okay? So it has a very simplistic licensing model, but again, you don't have to relicense any other product. You're basically just paying for the HANA database. I do want to mention, though, the licensing for BW, the sidecar apps, or development platform are licensed in a different fashion. They are licensed more based on the size of the database you need to use, because again, this is in memory, so it's based on the size, and it's also, they have, as with other database vendors, they have a standard edition, they have an enterprise edition, they have additional add-ons. So if you're licensing one of those other products, it is a slightly different licensing model, but again, for the purposes of Business Suite on HANA, it's 15% of your software maintenance value base. So to kind of wrap things up, on the functional side, and again, Nick is going to talk here a little bit more on the technology side, the volume and demand for big data is growing every day. I think every one of us is seeing that in IT. To date, I think it's pretty obvious that the data is outgrowing the capabilities of the analytical tools. So HANA is a direct solution for that particular problem. I think we are seeing that Suite on HANA is going to be a game changer for business. Those additional 26 applications are going to provide analytical capabilities and decision-making ability for customers that they never had in the past. It is a pretty new, exciting architecture and a platform that SAP is going to use for the future. The real-time analytics are going to have a big tangible ROI. So when you think about the investment and the cost it might take to move yourself from where you are today to purchase the hardware to get the HANA license, I think there is a real ROI that can be achieved to where this isn't just a technology decision, this is truly a business decision. As I just covered a second ago, pretty simple licensing model, so to figure that out, pretty straightforward. And as I like to just say, I think this is just the beginning. I think in 3 years from now, we're going to hear more about HANA, and most of you probably will have some footprint in HANA somewhere in your landscape, probably sooner than many of you might think. So to kind of wrap up my portion of the discussion, I would like to just take a quick little poll here. We'd like to say, it should pop up on your screen, basically asking what is your level of interest in HANA. We're just trying to get a sense for our customers where they're at and what they're thinking. So we're going to keep this up. You have about, let's say 30 seconds or so to fill this out as we move forward. I can leave that up there for another second or so. And in doing so, we're going to start to move forward to Nick, and he's going to talk a little bit about the technology and what it means, maybe a little bit more nuts and bolts discussion. So again, we'll keep that poll open for maybe just another 15 or 20 seconds, if you can just give us a quick answer. And Nick, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks Frank. As Frank mentioned, my name is Nick Militich. I'm the Director of Solution Architecture here at Symmetry, and I'll be talking about the technical aspects of HANA. Wrap up this polling question here. I think we have a couple more people. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now. All right. Great. All right, so I'm going to start talking about the technical aspects of HANA and the underlying technology surrounding it. So the first topic is, how does my environment change? And Frank briefly touched base on this, but I actually want to switch it around and let everyone know what actually stays the same within your HANA environment, because it truly is similar to what you're running today in the technology. For what remains the same, your ABAP, your configuration, your customization actually all remains the same. You don't change any of that going forward. What HANA does is it adds enhancements to those particular areas. And you can activate those as it's necessary to your business. The transport methodology, that remains the same as well. You're going to move transports from a dev to a queue to a production. Still the same type of transport, same transactions. You can actually transport between HANA and non-HANA systems. Obviously, as long as you do not touch the HANA-specific code, transports are possible between those type of landscapes. Monitoring through SAP. Today, if you use CCMS or any other type of alerting, provided by Solution Manager, or just the DBA cockpit that you see within your ECC landscape, that can be utilized as well to monitor HANA. Connectivity is the same, so SAP GUI would be the same type of methodology you would use to connect. In addition to that, though, HANA does bring other connection capabilities, such as web-based capabilities that aren't possible today in a generic ECC environment. They do use some HTML5 code, which actually enables you to present some of the newer reports on a mobile device or on just a web page. Obviously, the best part about HANA is the batch processing runs faster. Overall, your whole system runs faster. So batch processing, for example, some of those batch processes might not even need to be batch anymore. That's something that can be run on the fly. Reporting can be run in real time. So to go along with the batch processing, HANA is such a superior technology compared to a traditional database that you can run reports, you can run batch jobs that would take hours. You could run them in seconds on a HANA device, which lets you run reporting, lets you run any batch processes you want real time. And as Frank mentioned, analytics are now possible within a single system because you can do real-time reporting on the HANA device. You can do analytics right on that device as well. So you can run reports to generate any type of analysis you have the need for within that system real time. And as I mentioned, HANA enhancements are activated through the switch framework, so you can turn them on and off. These are reversible switches, which was not the case for other certain functions that you would activate through the switch framework. So these are reversible. You can turn them on, you can turn them off, and it's just a simple activation. As far as SAP HANA landscape options, the same SAP standard design still applies. So you'll have a dev, you'll have a QAS, and you'll have a prod. Clustering is still supported. Disaster recovery is supported as well. So you can do storage mirroring, you can do just standard replication. And the way the replication works is you're actually moving flat files. HANA has its own type of database tools that allow you to just move flat files and replicate that HANA database to another appliance, similar to log shipping in Oracle, for example. Multiple non-productive SIDs can be run on a single HANA appliance. There are caveats to that, but you can run your dev and QAS on a single appliance to save cost, and then you would run production on its own device. So that means, in a smaller landscape, you could actually only have 2 HANA devices in lieu of 3. Third-party backup solutions are supported with HANA, and third-party tools are allowed to run on the SAP HANA appliance, which means that, in essence, that HANA appliance, the backend is a SUSE Linux box. So anything you can run on SUSE Linux, you can install on the HANA device. So if there's backup agents, any monitoring agents that you normally would install in your landscape, that can be installed on this HANA device. And the compression factor within HANA is generically 3.5 to 4 times less than the size of your current production database. Now there's a big caveat to that. It depends how you use the system. It also depends if you have any type of database compression turned on, it would be much less of a compression factor. You may only get 2 or 1.5 times. So in order to analyze that, we would Symmetry can assist you in getting a hardware vendor to come in and discuss and run tools to possibly get you better compression factors. There's also scripts that SAP provides to give you a general idea of how much compression you can have if you go to a HANA device. Here's an example HANA landscape. You have a development, you have a QAS, and you have a prod. As Frank mentioned, those devs and QAS and prod, the blue boxes that you see there are the central instances. Those run on any SAP supported platform. So if you have HPUX, Linux, Windows, any of those platforms that you run today, you can actually run the HANA CI on that box. It does require a separate HANA appliance, so that database itself is running on that SUSE Linux HANA appliance. That is your database. So instead of Oracle or SQL Server, that HANA appliance, that green box, is now your database. And it does connect back to the blue boxes you see there. Now the optional purple arrow that you see on the screen is what I discussed on the previous slide, where you can share a dev and a QAS instance on one HANA appliance. Now currently, I know SAP and the hardware vendors are working on this, but currently there's no way to segregate the actual memory used between dev and QAS. So it's not a true segregation. So if you're using a dev and a QAS in one single HANA appliance, the major caveat there is that they will be competing for resources because it is in memory. You never know if you're going to write a dev or a QAS data into that memory. So that means that if you're really hammering QAS hard for some reason, you will see a definite performance impact on dev. So it really depends on the business scenario and how you can implement HANA, and if it's the right choice to combine those two on one HANA appliance. Now the beauty of this landscape too is that you can use any hardware that you have today. So the ROI on this, if you purchased hardware in the last year, you can still see the benefit of that hardware. You don't have to get rid of it. You just have to buy a new appliance. So you can use those servers. And if your landscape grows, you can add app servers on that hardware as well. So if you're a Windows shop, your CI runs on Windows, you can install Windows app servers in addition to that on that hardware. So you can definitely reutilize the hardware if you had just purchased it. Now migrating a suite on HANA, there are minimum requirements. SAP is going away with the dual stack, so dual stacks are not supported on a HANA environment. So Java must be split prior to the migration. That's been around for a while now, where SAP going forward is splitting the Java stacks out of dual stack systems. If you have just an ABAP stack, great. A lot of the ECC environments that we've seen generally don't have Java stacks, or a lot of the companies jumped on the Java stack bandwagon but don't use it anymore, so it can just be dropped, and quite honestly probably should be dropped anyway if you're not using it. SAP HANA is Unicode only, so Unicode conversion can be combined with the migration. It can be one process, but it is Unicode only. And there are minimum source database platforms that you will need to be at to migrate to HANA, and they're generally some of the latest database platforms, such as Oracle 11, SQL Server 2008. You'll have to be at those versions to be able to migrate. Essentially, this is a standard heterogeneous migration process. So you're using SAP tools to migrate this data over to a HANA appliance. There's no difference whether you go to HANA or SQL or Oracle. It is the same process, same tools. So if anyone has done a heterogeneous migration, it's going to be identical. Keep in mind that you do have to be SAP certified to actually do heterogeneous migrations, so if you're not, Symmetry can help you with that. Existing hardware, again, can be utilized with the HANA appliance. And Suite on HANA components can actually be installed or migrated individually. So let's say you don't see a business need for ECC, but you really think that CRM would help out on a HANA appliance. You can actually just install CRM on HANA or migrate your CRM to a HANA database, and you can do that independently. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. So as Frank mentioned, all the Suite on HANA components, all those can be migrated individually. Here's an example of a migration path to Suite on HANA. I'm going to focus on the top one. The bottom one is going to come out eventually. SAP is developing that path right now. But the top one is what you would do today if you wanted to go to HANA. You do have to be ERP6, Enhancement Pack 6. So in addition to the Java and the Unicode, you're going to have to be at the latest Enhancement Pack. Now, in addition to the latest Enhancement Pack, SAP has another Enhancement Pack that would go on to add the functionality that HANA would provide. That's all in a specific HANA Enhancement Pack. So from a standard migration process, if you're starting at ERP 6 without an enhancement pack, you would go to enhancement pack 6, and then you would go to the other additional enhancement pack for HANA. So it's a two-step jump. Now going forward, hopefully by mid to end of this year, SAP is going to come out with a tool that combines most of that process, so you can go from an ERP 6 right to Enhancement Pack 6 plus the Enhancement Pack for HANA. So it'll be a one-step process, a little more cleaner to get you to the HANA appliance. But that is coming out hopefully this year. Here are a few HANA migration scenarios that we're going to go through. We at Symmetry have a HANA proof of concept lab here, and we've been working closely with our clients interested in doing a proof of concept to see if this HANA database will help their business. We've been going through and filtering out what the prereqs are for specific clients and how to get them into our proof of concept lab so they could determine if HANA is a benefit to them. I'm just going to go high level over a few of these. For this table, if you see the first line, you're starting in ECC and your Unicode and your EHP6. It's just a straight heterogeneous export-import into HANA, in addition to the HANA-specific enhancement packs. If you're not Unicode, but you're on the same platform, you can do the Unicode conversion to sandbox and heterogeneous export-import to HANA. So we can provide a HANA sandbox, or you can have a sandbox. What you do is you install it on that sandbox, you do the Unicode conversion there, export-import. ECC6, Unicode but less than Enhancement Pack 6, there will be required an EHP upgrade prior to doing that, and that can all be done on a sandbox again. And in our proof of concept lab, that's what we've been assisting clients with, is building that sandbox so that you don't have to actually affect your current productive landscape. It has no impact on that, and you can do this on a sandbox environment. And then ECC5 landscapes would require an actual upgrade. Anything lower than ECC6, you need to upgrade to ECC6 to be able to do that. Now, the proof of concept lab that we have today will hold a decent-sized database, but for extremely large databases, you can actually use tools such as Go Client by Hayes Technologies to actually reduce the database size. So it has the capability to parse out only a selective amount of data, and that way, if you have an 8 terabyte database, a 10 terabyte database, even a 4 terabyte database, you can chop that down to a very small subset, so you can still run reports off of that subset of data, but you don't have to move all your data over to a proof of concept. Now, I would like to add a polling question here and see if anyone is actually interested in participating in a proof of concept in our lab. We currently have a few clients going through this now, but we would always love the opportunity to help anyone else out interested in participating in a proof of concept to see how this would impact your business. So I'm going to put up this polling question here, and you should see the poll open here, and if anyone's interested in it, Symmetry would be happy to help you guys implement a proof of concept on our HANA lab here at Symmetry. I'll leave the poll open for another few seconds here. Give it another 10 seconds, and then we'll continue on. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now. All right. Now I'm going to get into a little bit about HANA administration itself. HANA generally requires less administration than a conventional database. It is in memory, so the fact that it's in memory, it writes in and it writes out. So there's no indexes. That's one reason why it's smaller as well. You don't have to have all the data indexed. It is just in memory. Patching the environment is similar to any other database. You patch the HANA software, you patch the OS. It is a very straightforward process, just like you would patch any other database. Monitoring is very straightforward. There's the DBA cockpit you can use. The solution manager can be connected to HANA, and SAP HANA Studio is available to actually maintain the HANA database. So it's a proprietary HANA cockpit to maintain the database, similar to the SQL Server Studio. Backup and recovery, just as simple. You can use backend. You can use third-party products. There's many third-party products. The big players in the backup market are producing backup agents to be able to do backups using backend. And it's simple as monitoring log size as well, because log size are really recording the changes, or the logs are, while things are being written in and out of memory. And then there are definitely HANA administration guides you can go read that SAP provides that shows you exactly what to maintain on a HANA appliance. Very straightforward and very easy to monitor. And now to wrap up the presentation, I will turn it over to Frank Powell.
Okay, thanks, Nick. So we just have a couple final comments. I think we've hopefully given you some good information this morning. If you have any questions, and we're going to answer the ones that we have accumulated through the last hour, but if you need any help, Symmetry is here to help our customers analyze how HANA could impact your systems. What I showed you a little while ago about that screen that you could upload your transactional data, what we need to do is you download your data it's transaction STO3, which is transaction history. You load that up into the website. You get a report. If you want assistance doing that, Symmetry is more than happy to help you do that. So that's one way we'd like to help our customers. We do that free of charge, so that's more or less, it's a pretty simple process, but instead of our customers fumbling around, we're happy to help get that done. The next is, as Nick had mentioned, if anyone's interested in doing a proof of concept, we do have some HANA appliances that we are using internally to help our customers do that very thing. So before you make a big investment, if you don't want to impact your existing landscape and you'd like to do that off to the side, we're doing proof of concepts across virtually any platform and any of the Suite on HANA products. And lastly, if you just want to kind of discuss where you're at and how you would get there, what we're kind of calling a HANA readiness assessment. If you're sitting there on ECC 5 and you're saying, hey, boy, I'd like to be ready maybe a year or 18 months, I really think that's where my business wants to go. Can you help me draw out a roadmap of how I get from where I am to be ready to do HANA? We'd happy to do that too. So if any of those things of our interest, by all means, please contact us, and we can schedule a time to sit down and talk about those in more detail. So with that, I'd like to just cover a couple of questions. We have a number of them here. One of the first ones, and I think we got this one every time, is people ask about what about the in-memory portion, and how does that impact the production operation, what if the system turns off, that sort of question. To answer that, although this is an in-memory database, it does write to disk and keeps a persistent copy of that data on disk. Now, it's not using an underlying database technology like Sybase, as some people have assumed. It's a flat file representation of the in-memory image, so that is constantly being updated. So if the system crashes, you don't lose your data, and when you start the system, that's where it gets reread from. So there is a persistent copy written to on disk, but it is not a relational database format. It's literally a flat file format. So that does exist, and that's kind of where backups and things are also ran from. So that's the first one. Kristen, do you have another one there? Okay. Comment there. Okay. Well, Nick, any other comments? I think that was the only question that we actually had today. So
not from my end.
Okay. Well, with that, I know we're kind of getting close to our 1 hour, so we can wrap it up here. If you have any other questions, like I said, we're more than happy to answer those. And then lastly, we will be posting the presentation, or maybe is already on our website. So if you'd like to review this again, you can always come to our website at www.sim-corp.com for further information. And I guess with that, I'd like to thank everyone who attended today, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you very much.